Heather Pawsey is a celebrated Canadian soprano whose musical interests run from opera to Broadway. She is the artistic director at Astrolabe Musik Theatre in Vancouver, where she is known for her musicianship and her versatility. It is my pleasure to welcome Heather Pawsey to Studio 4 to tell us more. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
And the fact that you embrace contemporary music and ancient music.
Yeah.
Is that the versatility part?
Partly, yeah, I think so.
Okay. Tell me about Astrolabe Musik Theatre, music with a K.
Music with a K, yes.
And Astrolabe with an E.
Yes. An astrolabe is an ancient navigational instrument that mariners would use for charting unexplored territory. So I was really drawn to that because that's what I like to do with classical music. I love classical music, but I want to take the form further. And lab because it's a bit of a laboratory, it's a bit of experimentation.
Okay.
Music with a K, because if you say music theater and spell it the way that we do in English, people think you're doing musical theater like Oklahoma or Cats, which is definitely not what I do. So it's a bit of a long title, but it encompasses everything that I wanted my company to embrace.
But you have been in a production of musical theater.
Recently, yes, that was a step out. I hadn't done a musical for 10 years, I think, and Patrick Street Productions invited me to join the Light in the Piazza, so we just closed that up.
How lovely. But you know, Merry Wives of Windsor, Three Penny Opera. Well, Merry Wives of Windsor isn't really a musical, but you know, all of the above. The fun musicals on Broadway. Do you have a dream to ever go to Broadway and star in Annie or anything?
No, absolutely not. No.
Okay, so back to music with a K.
Yes.
You take a Beethoven, you take a Brahms composer, and you twist it around and make it contemporary. What does that mean? Or do you make it contemporary, or do you just work with it?
Because my whole background is classical music and opera and all of that, so I have phenomenal respect for a composer and a poet, what they've done and the art that they've created. And then what I started to do was, with art song in particular, classical art song, I mean in opera we always move, right, as part of the theater, but in art song you stand and you sing, and that's been the tradition. And I'm thinking, well, it's the 21st century, we live in a very visual society, things happen a lot faster, and I also have always been very interested in theater, in dance, in visual art, in other forms of artistic practice. So I had an opportunity to study for a year after my undergrad at the Banff Center. So here we were for a year with, you know, artists of all different kinds thrown together in the mountains, and we just created things. We started experimenting. So flash forward to the last few years, I've produced 10 New Music in New Places concerts. They've all been site-specific, and it was a project of the Canadian Music Centre to take contemporary classical Canadian music, which is a particular passion of mine, out of the concert hall, out of the library, and into places where you might not normally expect to hear a concert. So I did 2 at the Aquarium and 3 up at the Britannia Copper Mine, and had audiences move around from place to place, because another big passion of mine is to really actively engage an audience, so that it's one thing and that has its place for you to come sit in a chair and I will sing at you. But my interest is to really involve people. Classical music can frighten people, and I want to say here, there are many doors in. Part of that is come and be part of the experience. So connect you viscerally with each other. So what I like to do, what I try to do with Astrolabe is, for instance, one of the pieces we'll be performing this weekend at the event in Passing at the Western Front is a phenomenal piece by George Crumb. He's a contemporary American composer. Text is Walt Whitman. And instead of just standing and singing this incredible piece of music, I hired a choreographer to come and choreograph it so that there's movement not only for me, the singer, but also for Rachel Iwasa, my pianist. This isn't something that's ever done in classical art song.
No, I have been in a recital or two. I used to play classical violin, and I know that you have to be very proper.
Absolutely.
And if you're not Miss Spencer, gives you that look.
The wrap across the
knuckles. Or the wrap across the knuckles, or the poke with the needle, or something. So, no, there's no funning around.
So
when you're in a serious recital. But tell me about the Western Front production. Is it based on, you say, Walt Whitman text?
Well, the Western Front production is something that we're doing this weekend as part of Vancouver's 125th celebration. And it's a multidisciplinary collaboration between Astrolabe Musik Theatre, Tara Cheyenne Friedenberg's dance company, Tara Cheyenne Performance,
right.
Visual artist S.D. Holman, and Heritage Vancouver.
How marvelous.
It's quite, I'm really excited about it. I love site-specific work. So it's at the Western Front, and if you're an artist of any kind, you probably know the Western Front, that wonderful old wood frame building on East 8th.
Yes, is that Hank Bull?
Yes.
Hank Bull
yes,
still
you're
at
right.
the Western
yes,
Front?
Yes.
Been there for many years?
Yes.
Okay.
And what we didn't know was, well, we knew that the Knights of Pythias were the original builders of the Western Front. And if you've ever been in the building, there's these funny little traces of them, little peepholes in doors. And what we didn't know was that the Knights of Pythias prepared their members' bodies for burial, and there's a coffin storage space. So all of the artists involved in this, Tara and S.D. Holman, Rachel and I, had all collaborated on projects in the past. And we had all been exploring the theme of grief, mourning, mortality. We'd all experienced deaths of people very close to us. And we also realized that if you have grown up outside of a faith tradition, or if you've left your faith tradition, there aren't many opportunities for us to talk about grief and mourning and mortality. We live in a society that doesn't want to talk about death.
Right, one of the taboos.
Absolutely. So we thought art could address this. So we found this aspect of the Western Front that we had never known about. We thought, here's a wonderful opportunity to do site-specific work in this building that used to be this closed, inaccessible secret society that's now open to the public. Brought all these artists together, and then someone said, well, isn't death kind of a strange way of commemorating Vancouver's birthday? And I thought, well, no, because if you think about it, celebration, if you celebrate something, you are remembering, you are commemorating.
Sure.
And there are many aspects about Vancouver's built heritage, about this building, that we may not know about in passing.
And
secret
buildings
spaces.
Pass like we do.
Exactly.
Buildings come, buildings go.
Or they're reincarnated from a
Exactly.
secret society to an open artist-run center. And then, of course, passing is the euphemism that we use for death. We don't want to talk about it.
No, we don't say she died.
Exactly.
We say she passed.
We should pass.
So this is called In Passing.
In
So take me
Passing.
back to the Britannia mine, where, where you did animal, vegetable, mineral, in the mine with the water dripping?
Absolutely, yeah. That was the third concert that we'd done up there with capacity crowds. The Britannia Mine has been a wonderful collaboration for me with them. We've taken people and used that whole vast, great space, which the machine shop, we've taken them down through the tunnels. We walked 300 people through the tunnels and had musicians hidden in the tunnels.
Lovely.
And then we ended up in that fantastic mill concentrator building, which sounds like a cathedral with the water running. And we've had Leslie Ueda, who's a British Columbia composer.
Right.
We'll be premiering a work of hers this weekend. She wrote a piece specifically for the mine concert called Oracle Stones. And she came out to the mine with me, listened to how that building sounded with the water, and incorporated that into the piano and the clarinet parts and the voice parts and the flute.
Because as you know, the PR people say now you don't go under the mountain, you go through the mountain.
You go through the mountain.
Because it feels better than to be under the mountain,
And you're
unless you're a hearty miner.
And you're not really that far underground.
No, you're not that far underground, but some of us get a little crawly underground. So if there's beautiful music and dance and things happening.
And surprises. And again,
surprises.
That's a way of having the audience really be part of the, you are contributing. What audiences never, I don't think, ever realize, or they underestimate, is they are so critical to any performance. I can sing to an empty room and who cares, but the audience's energy and their response changes the performance so much.
So when you're in an opera, Vancouver Opera, in a big production, in a Puccini, something like that, in a Bizet, how is it different? Because you have the people and the actors and the singers around you, and you're singing and you're in costume.
Yes, and opera is, I love opera. Opera is such a particular art form. It has so many components, but it's very prescribed. You know, you have to look at the conductor, you have to follow the music. There's not a lot of time for play. But again, the feel in the house, when there's a full house for the opera and they are with you every second, you can feel them breathe, you can feel the energy and the warmth radiating, or not, as the case may be.
No, I totally get that. I have many friends who are actors, and they know
It's exactly
when the
same.
audience is there and when the audience is not there, and when they hear the papers crackling.
Yes.
or the coughing.
Yeah.
And they think there's a nerve we are not hitting.
Exactly.
It's a feeling.
Yeah.
It's a presence, it's a feeling.
And then it changes your performance. It changes your energy and how you approach your work that night.
Do you work in different languages?
Yes. I sing in about, I think it's 16 at last count.
16? Do you
Yeah.
speak 16 or
no.
just sing in 16?
I sing in 16. I can speak, I can carry on a conversation in French, German, and Italian. All opera singers need to have that. But I've been approached just over the years to sing in Polish, in Cree, in Mandarin, Korean, Bulgarian, Polish. So I find a really good coach and a really good native speaker, and I work like crazy to get it right.
How great.
Yeah.
And you just have to really do the song. You don't have to continue on talking in Cree, do you?
I had to speak in Mandarin and Taiwanese in some of the work that I've done with the Turning Point Ensemble. So
Really?
that was also a challenge to get the tones precisely right.
How interesting. That Astrolabe is interesting. That whole music theater idea and
I hope so. I
moving
really,
it all
I want
together
to
and-
push boundaries and
Why
invite
not?
invite
what does your t-shirt
other
say?
artists. Oh, all kinds of things. Punk, no attitude, more kisses.
More kisses. I'm for that. And for you coming back and talking more about Puccini, Martini. And you had a cello you played a funny cello.
I played a funny cello with a bar in it.
Really?
Yes.
Well, let's talk about that next time. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Nice to see you. Heather Pawsey. And Astrolabe Music Theatre presents In Passing Western Front, November 12th and 13th at 8 p.m. Remember to tune into Timmy's Christmas Telethon right here on Shaw TV on Sunday, December 4th, and you can catch all of our conversations on YouTube or follow us on Twitter at Fanny Studio 4. Tomorrow, ethnobotanist, National Geographic explorer Wade Davis returns to take us into the silence, the Great War, Mallory, and the conquest of Everest. And sensational children's author Chris Van Allsburg, who wrote and illustrated The Polar Express and Jumanji, brings in the Chronicles of Paris Burdick. And Red, White, and Drunk All Over wine writer Natalie McLean takes us on a tipsy quest for the world's best bargain wines. Thanks for watching Studio 4. Lots more on Shaw TV, only on Shaw TV.